You already know the feeling. A summer evening, just past dark, the air still warm from the day. You are outside, maybe on the porch, maybe walking through the yard, and the grass begins to flash. One light, then another, then a dozen, then so many you stop walking entirely and just stand there, watching something that feels less like biology and more like the night deciding to communicate with itself. Fireflies. Most people have some version of this memory, and almost no one who has stood in that moment has stopped to ask the question that makes the whole scene suddenly strange: what is actually being said in all that light? Because it is not random. Every single flash you are watching is a sentence, delivered in a code so precise that getting one syllable wrong can be the difference between finding a mate and being eaten by one. Let's start with the code itself, because once you understand what you are watching, you will never see a summer evening the same way again. Every firefly species produces a flash signal that is unique to that species, a combination of duration, interval, intensity, and flight path that functions as a biological password. The common Big Dipper firefly, the species most North Americans recognize, produces a single J-shaped dip in the air as the male rises and flashes, a signal so consistent that researchers can identify it reliably by timing alone. Other species flash twice, 3 times, or in rapid bursts. Some pulse rather than flash. Some produce a continuous glow rather than any discrete signal at all. The female, perched in vegetation below, waits for the exact signal of her own species and responds with a precisely timed flash of her own, a delay calibrated to the millisecond, which brings the male closer for another exchange, and then another, a conversation conducted entirely in blinks of cold light above your lawn. Two animals that cannot hear each other, cannot smell each other from any distance, are finding each other across the dark of a summer garden using nothing but timing, and the timing has to be right to within fractions of a second or the whole conversation fails. But not everyone in that conversation is who they appear to be. Among the lights moving through your backyard on a summer night, there is, almost certainly, at least one that is lying. Female fireflies of the genus Photuris have evolved the ability to decode the signals of other firefly species and reproduce them, flash for flash, timing for timing, with enough precision to pass as a receptive female of the species being mimicked. When a male of a different species, following the signal he was born to find, drops toward what he believes is a female of his own kind, what he finds instead is a Photuris female who has been waiting for exactly this response. She kills him. Then she eats him. Researchers who first documented this behavior in the 1960s coined a name for it that has never been replaced: femme fatale fireflies. But the story does not end with predation, because Photuris does not eat these males only for nutritional reasons. The males of certain species carry defensive chemical compounds called lucibufagins, molecules that Photuris cannot produce herself, that protect the animal carrying them from spiders and other predators. By eating the males who respond to her false signals, the femme fatale firefly is not simply feeding. She is stealing a chemical defense that she cannot manufacture on her own, harvesting it from an animal who came toward her believing the oldest possible lie, that the light ahead was the one he was looking for. I remember reading the first detailed account of this behavior and having to sit with it for a while, because it fundamentally changed something I thought I understood about the experience of watching fireflies at dusk. Those lights are not simply beautiful. They are an active negotiation, some of them honest, some of them lethal, played out above your grass in real time while you stand there with a drink in your hand completely unaware that what you are watching includes a predator actively deceiving its prey. Let that settle for a moment. The summer evening that feels like magic is also a crime scene. And the lights that look identical from 20 feet away are being read, with devastating accuracy, by animals who can tell the difference between a signal that means safety and one that means death, at least most of the time. Now let's talk about what that light actually is, because the chemistry behind it is the part of this story that stopped me cold the first time I encountered the numbers. When a firefly's lantern organ flashes, the light is produced by a chemical reaction between a compound called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase, in the presence of oxygen and ATP, the energy currency of every living cell. This reaction produces what chemists classify as cold light, and the efficiency number attached to it is the thing that should change how you think about every light source you have ever used. Approximately 95 to 96% of the energy in the reaction comes out as visible light. The remaining fraction, 4 to 5%, is released as heat. Compare this to an incandescent bulb, which converts roughly 5 to 10% of its energy to light and wastes the rest as heat, or even to an LED, which achieves efficiencies around 30 to 50%. A firefly flashing above your yard is, by any engineering standard, producing light in a way that human technology has not come close to replicating. You can hold a glowing firefly in your hand and feel nothing, no warmth, no radiation, just a cool green-yellow pulse against your palm. NASA has explored using the luciferase reaction to detect living cells in extraterrestrial environments, because the reaction requires ATP, which only living cells produce. The light in your backyard is a biosensor sophisticated enough to interest space exploration research, running on chemistry that took hundreds of millions of years to optimize and that engineers are still trying to understand well enough to copy. And this is where the story moves from wonder to something more urgent. The lights in your backyard tonight are fewer than they were 20 years ago, and fewer still than they were when your parents stood in the same kind of evening and watched the same kind of field. Firefly populations are declining across North America and Europe in ways that are now measurable and consistent, and the causes are not difficult to identify. Light pollution is the most significant. Fireflies navigate and communicate by their own signals against a dark sky. A garden illuminated by porch lights, a street lit by overhead lamps, a yard visible from a lit window disrupts the signal-to-noise ratio of every flash exchange happening within range of it. Males cannot find females. Females cannot read the signals against competing light sources. The conversations that need to happen in the dark cannot happen in the ambient glow of a neighborhood that never goes fully dark. The second cause is lawn management. Firefly larvae live in the soil and leaf litter, feeding on small invertebrates during the months and years before they emerge as adults. A lawn kept short, kept chemically treated, and kept free of the dead leaves and damp organic matter larvae need for habitat is a lawn being progressively emptied of the next generation of fireflies before they ever reach adulthood. There is one more piece of this story that belongs to the larvae, and it matters because it explains why your garden specifically can become a sanctuary for one of the most extraordinary light shows in the natural world. Firefly larvae are predators. They live in soil and leaf litter for 1 to 2 years before emerging as adults, and during that time they hunt earthworms, slugs, snails, and other soft-bodied invertebrates, paralyzing prey with an injected digestive enzyme and consuming them in place. Even the larvae glow. They produce the same bioluminescent chemistry as the adults, and researchers believe this larval glow serves as a warning signal to predators that the animal carries unpleasant compounds, a defense the adult females of Photuris will later try to steal. The flash above your lawn is the final chapter of a years-long life that began in the soil beneath your feet, and the conditions you maintain in that soil, how wet it stays, how much organic matter remains on its surface, how free it is of chemical disruption, determine whether that story gets to reach its ending at all. The practical implications of this are straightforward. Turn off unnecessary outdoor lights in the hours between sunset and midnight, particularly in late June and July, when adult fireflies are most active. Leave a section of your yard uncut, with leaf litter undisturbed, to provide the soil habitat larvae need. Stop or reduce the use of broad-spectrum insecticides on lawn areas where you want to support firefly populations, since larvae are directly susceptible. None of these changes will cost you significantly, and the return is the kind of summer evening that most people remember clearly and that children growing up today in lit, managed yards are encountering with decreasing frequency. The fireflies still exist in your neighborhood. They are not yet gone. But the conditions that allow their population to remain in place require something simple from the people whose land they depend on: a few hours of genuine dark, a patch of ground left a little wild, and the understanding that the conversation happening in the air above your grass is the oldest kind of language, running on the most efficient chemistry biology has ever produced, negotiating love and deception in signals that last less than a second, all of it invisible to you unless you know what you are watching. Have you ever stood in a backyard or a field at dusk and watched the fireflies come out, or noticed over the years that there seem to be fewer of them than you remember? Tell me about it in the comments below. I read every single one, and the observations people share about their local firefly populations are some of the most valuable records this community produces. And if you want to understand another animal running a chemical operation in your backyard that most people have never paused to examine closely, the next video is already waiting for you.